Oh my god. Where is my chair? Whew! There it is. Okay, what was I doing? There was something I was doing. What the hell was I doing? I think each and every one of us has pretty fond memories of a platformer from at least one point in our lives, regardless of whether or not you grew up and moved away from them, or you stayed an ardent fan of that genre. Some genres, just for one reason or another, tend to be universal constants among the gaming community at large. And I think if you're a fan of video games in any capacity, chances are you've certainly played a platformer at least once. Particularly played one that, for whatever reason, connected with you and you connected with it big time. And now it's one of your all-time favorites, no matter what. Really hope I'm in focus or this whole thing's gonna be gay. For instance, even though I was never the biggest fan of 3D platforming games growing up, I really latched on to Super Mario Galaxy. I had certainly played damn near every Mario game up to that one's release, but I'd never really been able to finish any of them. I mean, I was never great at games, as you guys definitely know by now, but there was something about Galaxy that felt a lot more special, a lot more accessible, a lot more fun in my mind, and I was actually able to complete that one. I just really didn't find Galaxy nearly as frustrating an experience as all the other ones I had tried. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that I was now at the age where I was actually getting good enough to complete games. I'll probably chalk it up to that. It's one of the greatest games of all time and will firmly sit up at the top of my list of favorites until the day I die, which is never, because I'm not going to die. All these years and one sequel later, and I often find myself wishing and hoping for a third game that will never happen. Or will it? A couple of weeks, and the dust has finally settled on Astro Bot, a game that felt like it came out of nowhere and conquered the hearts of the entire damn gaming world, all within the span of 3 months. It was the light in a relatively dark state of play, and before I knew it, reviews were coming out saying it was a masterpiece, so you know I had to run to Walmart to grab a copy day one. And let me tell you right now, I could not have been happier that I made that decision. So Astro Bot is the continuation of the PlayStation 5's pack-in title, Astro's Playroom, which sees you taking control of Astro, a little robot guy. Cutest dude around. He can do no wrong. He, for whatever reason, has been charged with taking care of hundreds of little other buddies, some references, some not, and maintaining his ship, a giant PS5. In Astro Bot, your ship is accosted by a big-ass alien who wants nothing more than to be a huge dick, and in doing so, steals your CPU and causes every single bot and part to be scattered among the many worlds in this neck of the universe. Your job is to put everything back together, collect all your missing bots, all the parts to the ship, and then just chill? Maybe go to Chili's afterwards or something like that? If this reminds you of another game, you're far from alone. It was clear from the get-go that this was going to be taking the majority of its notes from Mario Galaxy. I could probably sit here for an hour pointing out the little bits here and there that showcase just how much Galaxy was an inspiration to Astro Bot. But I won't. I will simply say that despite the heavily inspired aesthetic and mechanics, Astro not only stands on its own, but stands among Mario's best, with fantastic character and level design, and probably my favorite video game soundtrack of the entire year by far. So normally I start this section off by talking about the game's performance, How does it run? Are there any bugs, small or large? You name it, really. Astro Bot has nothing. Nothing. The only bug I ever encountered wasn't even one I encountered. It was one that my friend Alex encountered. He sent me some screenshots of it. That's the only bug I have seen, period. And I didn't even experience it. It works, and works so damn well. I thought I was transported to another universe where developers were allowed to polish their games for as long as they see fit. Throughout my entire 15-hour playthrough, I saw the frame rate dip maybe one time. This game has no performance or fidelity modes. It launches and maintains a steady 60 FPS while showing off the amazing number of physics objects that can exist while not moving that frame rate one bit. Yeah, this game has a simpler look than something going for realism and whatnot, but it goes to show that a fantastic aesthetic can lend itself to a better overall gaming experience. When you needn't worry about ray tracing or rendering as many strands of hair on a character as possible, it feels as though the focus can remain on making the game feel as good to play as possible, and it feels good. Damn good. And that goes hand in hand with the game's perfectly balanced difficulty. A newcomer or a more casual player like myself is going to have a great time and have challenge that they will be able to do, and a player who is more of a veteran of the genre who's super good at it isn't going to get bored out of their minds, which is important. Each of the game's main worlds and boss battles are pretty easy, but outside of that are the smaller challenge levels that seem to really ramp up the difficulty. I was able to nab the platinum, which required beating the game's Grandmaster Challenge, and I was surprised it took me less than 1,000 tries to do. It's a jump that's more than satisfying enough to satiate the sweatier players of the genre, while also not alienating a more casual player like myself, who still wants to get everything done, and isn't really used to the challenging sprints that games like this might have on offer. Mechanically speaking, there's enough here to keep you engaged the whole way through, and then some. Every galaxy has a main level that will introduce a power-up that will let Astro complete said level. My favorite of which is this one that lets you slow down time. These all seem to make a comeback later on in other levels, so they aren't simply one and done. Each one not only allows you to progress in the level itself, but is required to be comfortable enough to use against the galaxy's final boss. All of which are stupidly fun to fight, and my personal favorite is Waco Taco? Waco Taco? Whatever. Only because his final form sees him split the goddamn sea. Man, this is so cool! And the best part? None of this got boring. The loop stayed engaging and fun the entire way through. That's definitely in part due to it being a shorter game, if you aren't trying to absolutely clean house, that is. But also because it's just masterfully designed. Levels don't overstay their welcome by being too long or too difficult, and said cleanup is made a bit quicker by the little bird who will point out most missed collectibles to you. I say most because he's not going to help you with certain special ones. Okay, now, normally I want to talk about the cons. What didn't I really like? But funnily enough, I find myself drawing damn near a complete freaking blank with this one. I know I'm not exactly the heaviest hitting when it comes to reviewing games, and so far I've been fairly favorable across the few that I've done this year. But seriously, I'm drawing a huge blank. I don't have any complaints about Astro Bot. I have so few complaints myself that I would actually like to bring up and talk about other people's criticisms of the game. Most of which, or all of which really, I find myself disagreeing with. Chief among them, Astro's very heavy-handed PlayStation branding and nostalgia that some people might take as the game being just a huge ad. Well, yeah, this game is a celebration of PlayStation as not just a brand, but the way millions of people fell in love with video games as a whole. One of the things I saw floating around was that all of the VIP bots, or the bots that are clearly referencing past IP, made some people feel as though they were playing through a graveyard of things that Sony refuses to acknowledge or ever let us see again, without the power of emulation or spending hundreds on the means to play the real deal, like an old console and copy of whatever game you're going for. I can definitely see where that sentiment would be coming from, especially since right before this game's release, Sony's CFO was quoted as saying, "Whether it's for games, films, or anime, we don't have that much IP that we fostered from the beginning," which was hilarious to see right before a game that celebrates the very best of the best that Sony has at least had a hand in making possible, but I don't see any of this as a pessimistic checklist that some suit handed down an order for. It was very clear to me that Asobi had a vision and so much love for not just the brand, but everything that PlayStation meant to them and by extension, us. So really quickly, this is where I'm gonna get into spoiler territory for the very final couple levels of the game. So if you would like to play this game on your own and you care about spoilers, you can just skip right to the conclusion at this point. If you need evidence of Asobi's love and care, and evidence that this game is anything but just an ad, the finale is all the proof you need that they knew what they were doing, and they knew who it was at the core of all of this that really mattered. You! The players that time and time again were the reason that every single one of those IP got to live a life at all, even if it was short. When you have to take control and rebuild Astro after his sacrifice, the CPU tosses you a heart, the most important part of Astro and what makes him tick. By putting that into him and bringing him back to life, you're putting a bit of yourself in there, like you do every time you play and fall in love with a game that people worked so hard to bring to life. You, us, we, are the last bit of that puzzle. That puzzle that is artistic creation, the last little bit of spice that brings this whole recipe together. I could probably go on with metaphor and whatnot, but I won't. You see what I'm saying? Art is meant to be enjoyed, or at the very least, experienced. When you take the time, spend the money, and experience the game that so many artists put together in the hopes that people would like it, you're putting at least a little bit of yourself into the equation. That little bit matters so much in the long run and brings life to all this. This isn't a graveyard. This is a party. A celebration for you. I do understand where people are coming from when they say that it feels like that, though. Hopefully, this will open someone's eyes at Sony and lets them know that we all want to see and have access to this older stuff again, not just have it, say, dangled in front of us at the end of it all. I just want to see it as something more positive than that. Earlier, I mentioned that for whatever reason, Astro is charged with taking care of all these other bots and the PlayStation itself, when I forgot a very key component of Astro Bot, and even of Playroom, and really every time he's shown up. It's that you are very clearly in control of him. So he, by extension, is us, and we are tasked with taking care of all of this. As we often are, when something is released, it's our job to look after it past that point. Much like someone who collects his or her games and keeps them protected in plastic sleeves in the hopes that maybe one day they can hand that copy of Jak and Daxter over to their grandkid or a friend in 40 years or something like that. So I certainly see Astro Bot as anything but a game that wants to dangle 150 corpses in front of you and send you on your way. It respects your time, it respects your wallet, and it respects you. It's a masterpiece that will have you smiling the entire way through. And I have no complaints. So now that everything has truly settled, from the review scores to people's play times, is Astro really worth buying and playing? Hell, even 100%ing, doing everything there is to do? Oh my god, yeah! I would recommend this game to anyone. And I mean anyone. Astro Bot is a platformer that is a true celebration of the last 30 years of PlayStation, and by extension, all video games. It runs near flawlessly, is balanced masterfully, and has the cutest new protagonist on the block. A mascot worthy of all the names he takes care of. The game's DNA is a big mix of titles that you have no doubt played before. And as I said before, Astro can more than stand on his own here, despite the sheer number of other titans of IP in the industry that are on display throughout the entire game. Astro's got it, man. You owe it to yourself as a PlayStation 5 owner to pick up a copy, hopefully physical, of Astro Bot. It will be well remembered as one of the titles that made the PS5 feel like a system that was worth the wait. Not a remake or remaster, but rather something that was made by masters. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to teleport the hell out of here. I gotta go catch a screening of Transformers 1. I hear it's good. Oh, there I go. Bye! Oh, god damn it!